and many good speakers in your ranks today. A very original and interesting subject has been chosen for my inaugural address in this conference. I do not believe that there are many books or articles written on this subject. The subject is going to be Theosophy's view on human sufferings. I will first try to define what is sufferings and then discuss the various sufferings that are faced in a human life. Then I'll try to explain what is theosophy to the best of my knowledge, since it is not easy for a person like me to define theosophy. We can then try to see the connection between the sufferings in human life and theosophy. Well, sufferings is defined as the state of undergoing pain, distress, hardship, misery, or agony. It implies an external and usually temporary cause of great physical or mental strain and stress. That is what we call suffering. I believe that our life is the sum total of our thoughts and beliefs about life. If you were taught that life will be a suffering, every experience you have will be framed within this thinking. Instead of being open-minded about what life throws at you, you will automatically be expecting bad things to happen. Of course, bad things do happen. I'm not saying that life is always easy. Life is a challenge. When we struggle against the natural rhythms of life, we create resistance and opposition. And this is what leads to suffering in human life. Let us consider the prevailing circumstances around us and the sufferings in this day and age. This will provide a practical background that will help us understand the importance of the law of karma and other subjects of theosophy. Let us honestly see what print, audio, and visual media have to offer us these days. We all the time hear about the murders and rapes. We hear about the war that is being fought in Europe. And we talk of various other sufferings. There seem to be misery and selfishness all around. There is terrible cruelty to all sentient beings and near total loss of ethics in our lives. Diseases are rampant and people are perpetually afraid of acts of terror. Even religion seems to have no peace or compassion to offer in this cruel world. Then there are struggles we all have to face all the time. Struggles to overcome fear, struggles of puberty between the age of 10 to 18 years, struggles of getting good education, struggles for selecting a career, struggles with terrorism all over the world, social struggles, mental struggles, emotional struggles, monetary struggles, married life struggles, old age struggles, health struggles, and on and on. These are the various kinds of sufferings that we as humans face in our day-to-day life. Almost every day, we see instances of racial discrimination, caste-based hatred, economic disparity, disabled persons, and violence against lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgenders, besides a number of other evils in human society. Fundamentally, we all belong to one human race, and our differences are purely external. The emphasis seems to be on these differences rather than those universal factors that unite us. Exclusiveness has insulated and isolated us. We are prevented from being united with other sentient beings in our feelings, experiences, and the sense of togetherness. In life, misery and sufferings come to all. The test is not only for the person who is placed in the position of suffering, but also for the person who is in a position to either help him or not. The person who is in a position to make the choice of helping has certain resources at his disposal. If he makes a choice to help, he must use his resources. The final choice would be to decide to what extent he wishes to help, and consequently, to what extent he wishes to use his resources. Unfortunately, most often this is not decided by the depth of suffering, but the closeness of the relationship between the two. Sometimes this help is also seen either as a repayment for other help earlier received or some help that may be needed of the other person in future. In all cases, there seems to be some motive linked to the self, although in different degrees. Of course, a decision not to help will not even involve any of these thought processes. Sickness, death. Excuse me. I have had a very bad throat for quite some time, and I did not want to make an excuse not to present myself here. So please pardon me for the interruptions. Sickness, death, a break in relationship, or financial distress are among the calamities that strike people that lead to suffering. One should search within oneself and reach that feeling of unity within. In such stressful circumstances, one would be in a better situation to offer both emotional support and practical help to the affected person, thus becoming both sympathetic and useful to others. The opportunity to help is embraced with no motive of gain or benefit to oneself. Under these circumstances, not having any expectation makes the help rendered even better. This would be true and spontaneous compassion. The karmic outcome of such acts of compassion is better both for the individual and the collective group of people. One should help at the least available opportunity with no motive or expectation. There is considerable temptation in this world all around. Adherence to truth and the voice of one's conscience are the only deterring factors. If these two are temporarily silenced, you will find people indulging in acts of dishonesty and even crime. In this time and age, adherence to truth has become a rarity. This is indeed a calamity. Corruption, wrong means of achieving one's ends, usurping what is not one's own, etc., are some of the acts of dishonesty and lack of integrity. Sometimes it is easy to fall prey to temptation in order to gain something cleverly using devious means. The karmic consequences could be very bad. The persons involved have to pay for their actions. Besides, all those who actively or tacitly participated will also have to pay the karmic price. There may be temporary pleasure from the short-term gains, but when the results follow, it would be quite unpleasant. There is often a feeling among people that the perpetrators of corruption and crime live happily and die without paying the penalty. The whole subject of karma is about this. A real knowledge of the operation of the law of karma will make one abstain from corruption, crime, and dishonesty. Also, the onlooker and all those persons who are in a position to expose corruption and crime should never look the other way and try to escape from their responsibility. They should choose what needs to be done and not what is nice to do. This is not neutrality. It is tacit complicity and carries suitable karmic consequences. They may seem secure for the moment, but will suffer the shame of their complicity later on. Some people have a perverse feeling that being cruel is the way of proving their superiority over those weaker than themselves. The Jain teachings are very explicit in respect of harmlessness. Saints like the venerated Ramalinga Swami and Saint Francis of Assisi have taught respect for all life. We should be constantly mindful about all life, whether they are in small physical bodies or otherwise. For example, we should be mindful of ants, snails, insects, etc. on the path and not step over them or ride a vehicle over them. It is also important to treat trees and plants with compassion. Cruelty to fellow human beings is terrible. Acts of ill treatment, even unconsciously indulged in, are very bad and have resultant karmic consequences. We may have younger and weaker family members, subordinates at the workplace, students in schools and colleges, and scores of others who we should treat with compassion. The law of the land requires imprisonment as a punishment for many crimes. Imprisonment should be viewed as a reformative process rather than a mere punitive one. Responsible citizens should apply their mind to this, and slowly the whole system should be changed. The karmic consequences of prisons are to be kept in mind. In this context, one should also never keep animals and birds in cages or on leash. A related idea in this context is the complete abolition of capital punishment, which may have lost its relevance in today's world. Terrorism is a curse in today's world. Terrorists are the creation of cruelty in collective human society. Their dreadful acts are indeed the result of the collective power of hateful thoughts generated by people. We should be responsible not only in what we do, but also in what we say and think. Each thought supported by a motive carries a karmic consequence. Our negative thoughts combine and reach a critical mass where they become a potent force that helps the terrorists. Each contributor of this thought energy shares to an extent the consequences of the crime committed by the terrorist. Use of resources, faculties, skills, knowledge, and attributes should also be done very wisely and without any waste. We often claim participation in various capacities in different groups. Family, caste, religion, country, organizations, and movements are different examples. A great master once applauded the young Damodar K. Mavlankar, one of the greatest theosophists and pioneers of the theosophical movement, for giving up caste. If we contribute positively to any group, the lot of that group improves the other hand. If the member of that group have not been principled, the individual too shares the karma of the group. National karma too is very important. And I think that is where lies the answer to the question very often people ask, that why did we have something like corona in this world? Well, this is what it is. It is possibly the result of some group karma that has been committed by the human beings. Lastly, we make investments and donations. Investing in wrong schemes and organizations has to be avoided. Companies that make cruelty-based products or environmentally unfriendly products should be clearly avoided. Also, organizations in which members, employees, shareholders, and customers are cheated should also be avoided. Movements and ideologies should be examined and questioned before we lend our support to them. It is important to pause and hesitate before we jump into every new venture. By the same token, we have to control our personal habits, our food habits, the cosmetics we use, the attire we clothe ourselves in, the medicines we consume, and the vehicles we use are all to be paid attention to. The treatment meted out to animals is a matter of great concern. Industrialized and mechanized animal farming, battery farming, etc. are practices we hear about these days. They are absolutely cruel, and one should actively fight against these rather than consume their products mindlessly. Cosmetics tested on animals are to be avoided. Leather, ivory, bone, and silk are products of cruelty whose use is prevalent in all cultures, either out of ignorance or out of insensitivity. Medicines and cosmetics are often tested on animals, causing a lot of suffering to them. We should remember consuming such medicines or using such cosmetics, particularly when peaceful alternatives are available. When we buy a vehicle, it is not the status attached to that brand, but also the ethical history of the company and the impact of its use on the environment that matter. Each of these factors has its own karmic impact on us as individuals and to the group we associate with and are affiliated to. Children and the next generation as a whole need to be treated carefully. Their capacities, sensibilities, and abilities often bring up many possibilities in today's world. It is a world that is in a hurry. It is a world where freedom is considered more important than discipline. In such a world, the tendency among the parents and elders is to force their ideas on the next generation. This often stresses out both the generations. Sometimes the stress has a huge emotional and psychological impact. The earlier generation should stop trying to make the next generation a copy of themselves, or alternatively, the proxy achievers of their dreams. Having said this, the next generation should never be a burden on their elders either. Now let us address the other end of the spectrum. As the children grow up, they are very involved in their own progress and comfort. They are interested in achieving success.
यात्रीगण कृपया ध्यान दें, उत्तर प्रदेश को जाने वाली बुलडोजर स्पेशल प्लेटफॉर्म क्रमांक 1 से गुजरने वाली सभी यात्रियों से निवेदन है कि जय श्री राम के नारे लगाकर स्वागत करें.
Kindly mute those who are unmuted, except speaker.
Very often the needs of the elders and their sense of loneliness is forgotten or ignored. In such a situation, the karmic obligations of the children remain unfulfilled and will carry the karmic consequences. At the same time, any expectation from parents and elders is not appropriate. They should not expect to be paid back for the care and affection they have showered on the children. In this delicate balance, it is important for each role player to be mature in his or her understanding of the other and trying to do the best. Having seen the meaning of sufferings and the various sufferings that are faced in a human life, let us see what is theosophy and whether it can give any reasons for the sufferings we face and how it will help us avoid these kind of struggles that have been faced. The word theosophy has come from Greek words theo, meaning a divine being or God, and sophia, meaning wisdom. Hence, theosophy is divine wisdom or wisdom concerning God or things divine. Madam H.P. Blavatsky says that theosophy is divine knowledge or science. It is divine wisdom or the wisdom of the gods. And theosophists are lovers of the truth. Hence, also the motto adopted by the Theosophical Society: there is no religion higher than truth. The chief aim of the founders of the Eclectic Theosophical Society was one of the three objects of its modern successor, the Theosophical Society, namely to reconcile all religions, sects, and nations under a common system of ethics based on eternal verities. Let us look at the main points in life on which brighter light shines out. From the first object of theosophy, to be a nucleus of universal brotherhood, our chief work lies in helping others as much as we can, as often as we can. Let us look at the two great doctrines of reincarnation and karma. If we look at reincarnation, what difference will appear in a life in which it is definitely held? First of all, looking at life with that wider horizon should give us a patient strength and an absence of hurry, which are not very characteristic of modern life. Many people believe that there is endless heaven or hell after this single life. Because of that, hurry has become a hallmark of life. Just as in a boat where there is danger of wreck, there is panic and struggle. So with all these who believe in that nightmare of an everlasting hell and the dream of an everlasting heaven, the element, the element of hurry enters into life. People feel that there is not much to do and such vast issues and so brief a time. Hence, life becomes a struggle in which failure is to be met with everlasting pain. But when it is realized that we have many chances, that every failure brings success a little nearer, and that the last failure is the threshold of success, then a great strength grows into our life. There is plenty of time, endless opportunities, and the fall of today is the rising of tomorrow. And slowly, as that thought of reincarnation becomes part of us, a principle to be lived, we find out life takes on the calmness, the serenity which comes from the consciousness of an immortal life. We are living one day out of many days, and what we cannot do today, we shall inevitably achieve tomorrow. Once a person understands reincarnation, the power he achieves is mighty. We will soon feel that there is nothing beyond our strength, for we have time during which our strength may gradually evolve. There is more benefit in the fact that people around us take on a new aspect when we realize the fact of reincarnation. We will have a closer lie with our friends because everyone we know as a friend comes out of our past. This way, we will realize the immortality of life. Now, let us see what happens when we meet an enemy after knowing the truth of reincarnation. Who is the enemy? Well, someone we have wronged in the past, someone to whom we owe a debt, and he comes forward to claim it. The payment to him sets us free. So he is really our liberator, not an enemy. He gives us the opportunity of paying off a debt, without the payment of which we could never have been liberated. When we see the enemy in that light, what happens to our anger or resentment? We will only have a feeling of gratitude for him to have taken from us the payment of an ancient debt that will now leave us free to go along our own road. So we can realize that nobody can injure us but our own self. The enemy who seems to strike is only our own hand striking our own face. If we are angry with ourselves, resent ourselves, are revengeful against ourselves. There is absolutely nothing like a permanent enemy. How does understanding of reincarnation affect circumstances of our life? Reincarnation makes us realize that the circumstances around us are exactly those that are best for our growth and evolution. Even that is not all the benefit which comes out of understanding of reincarnation. It gives infinite tolerance and a lot of patience with all the people around us. A big problem with truly good people is that they will feel that others are not good in the way they want them to be good. A person often says, if only my neighbor will do what I think he ought to do, how much better would his life be? Good people worry themselves almost to death, not in improving their lives, but in reforming the lives of their neighbors. That is all wasted effort. The self in each one of us knows his own path much better than the path others are taking. Now, does that mean that we should never advise or never counsel others? No. One can always give the fair help, but you should not try to force it upon others. You should not say, you must now do this. Always remember that in a chord of music, a discord is necessary for the perfection of the harmony. It sounds very bad standing alone, but as part of the harmony of a great chord, this note which has so discordant enriches and makes the chord perfect. The same is true in that incident that we have all read about few blind people describing the elephant. Someone says that the elephant is slim and flexible as he is touching the trunk, or slim and solid like because he's touching its teeth. Another says he's flat and thin since he's touching its ears. Another says it is like a rope as he's describing his pain. And the fifth, excuse me, touching its foot, says it is like a column. No one person has described the elephant correctly. The attitude of a theosophist should always be that of a learner in life. Always ask yourself, what has this man or that circumstance to teach me? What have I to learn from this problem? If we look at life this way, we would be so interested in it that we should have no time to judge or blame, and our life would begin to be the life of wisdom, the theosophic life. The sufferings in human life will end with the help of theosophical knowledge. Thank you.
Many thanks, Brother Pradeep Gohil ji. You've spoken beautifully, very eloquently, very interesting, very pertinent points. Brother N. Chakraborty will, of course, in his formal vote of thanks, summarize what you have said for the benefit of all. But for now, I again express my heartfelt gratitude for that beautiful address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
With this, now I would request our special guest, Brother B.L. Bhattacharya, former National Director, THEOSOPHY'S India, to kindly address us. Virendra? Brother B.L. Bhattacharya? Yes, I find you have unmuted yourself. You may start, please.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Respected Raja P.K. Datta, President of Bengal.
A little louder.